Okay, he just joined. You're okay, Tim?
Yep, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Okay.
Paul, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Apologize for any inconvenience or difficulties.
No problem.
Okay, ready to admit?
Yep.
Tim, you're good?
Yep, would you like me to share now?
Yes.
Okay.
And so you're going to move the screens for us. So put it in present. Yeah. Okay, and I'll start.
All set, Ingrid?
Yes, good morning, and thank you for joining today's New England Federal Collaborative on Serious Mental Illness and Serious Emotional Disturbance meeting, Demystifying SMI and SED, Recovery, Resilience, and Research. Today's meeting is hosted in partnership with Taylor Bryan Turner, Assistant Regional Administrator, SAMHSA, New England. And Taylor, I now turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. My name is Taylor Bryan Turner. I'm SAMHSA's Assistant Regional Administrator here in New England, and it's my privilege to welcome you to the second Federal Collaborative meeting on serious mental illness and serious emotional disturbance. We have a very robust agenda today. We've gathered your feedback from the last meeting in October and have prepared an agenda that focuses on demystifying SMI and SED. What is it? Can people recover? And how can the federal family help? We will introduce a new online suite of resources for your use, have a short Q&A with the panelists, and close with Paul Jacobson, Acting Regional Director for HHS, who has been a strong supporter and leader in steering us through the pandemic. Please note that the full bios for our speakers will be included in the materials, as I will be brief today to maximize time for our panel. Do we have any housekeeping, Ingrid, that you'd like me to share?
Yes, next slide, please. Today's meeting, participant microphones will be muted for the duration of this session. If you have questions during the webinar, please add your question to the chat box. If you have questions after today's webinar, please email timothy.jean@samhsa.hhs.gov. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ingrid. So first, I'd like to welcome Kim Ainsworth-Claskin to open for us today. Kim is the Executive Director for the Federal Executive Board for many years and remains the glue for New England federal agencies here in New England. She's been a lighthouse for me and a champion for vaccination distribution, just returning from a detail in Providence, Rhode Island. Thank you for your service, Kim, and thanks for making the time.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us today for this exciting forum. When I sat down and reflected on what I wanted to think about today, the first thing I did was try to think about how long we've been here. And this morning I realized it was 467 days ago when lives worldwide changed when the pandemic was declared. We are lucky in the federal government that most of us were able to transition very quickly to telework and been able to operate that way successfully ever since. And I personally have been among those who for months has touted our success as a workforce. I never talk about return to work. I talk about return to the workplace because federal government employees never stopped working. And I was very proud of the fact that we're able to regularly communicate with colleagues and customers and convene important meetings, be it in an all new way. My perspective changed about 6 months in mid-November when during one of our daily leadership calls, one of the managers reported that a colleague from another part of the country who was working very actively on the response had taken his own life the day before. Well, I did not know that person directly. It really completely rocked my world for a number of reasons. So as I sat back and reflected on my own operations, I realized that for one, I could be better about checking in. Generally, particularly during virtual meetings, I was all business. You know, like if you're in person, then you go and you sit down, you get there a few minutes early and you start chatting with people. But in the virtual world, meeting starts at 11 o'clock and you just jump right into business. And I sort of realized that I do that and made a commitment that I was going to start doing better with checking in with people. I took for granted that everybody that I deal with on any given day that was handling multiple priorities effectively. So I really committed to beginning every conversation with just how are you, and really take some time to book conversations with colleagues, with friends, with others, and consider it a good use of my time. I was actually very surprised with what I learned when I started asking that question, how are you? And frankly, for a long time, it broke my heart. I learned of 2 other additional federal employees who had taken their own lives during the pandemic. And that's partially why this group was formed. I shared my experiences with Taylor, who really took it and ran with it and talked about, I know our first meeting was sort of broad in nature, and this meeting sort of brings it much more down to the federal employee level and try to talk about how we can support each other as a workforce. So I hope that you really can take some of this back. I know some of you have done some amazing things in your own agencies, and we'd love to learn about them. I've started to participate in yoga sessions that are virtual for 10 minutes every day by one of the federal agencies in our area. And it's just an awesome way to just start my day. I know I'm not perfect, but I am really trying to get better about checking in, and I really do urge you to. And please try to recognize when someone, including me, might need a break. I did have somebody call me out back around Christmas time, and it actually has ended up changing my life. So thank you for joining us today for this exciting group, and I look forward to hearing and learning from all of you. So thanks, Taylor.
Thank you, Kim. That was really powerful. Thank you for setting the tone for the meeting today and the ongoing work that we all have to do on ourselves and each other ahead. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Larry Davidson, Director of the New England Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, for an overview of serious mental illness recovery, resilience, and research, and leads an incredible team and helped to make today possible. Larry, thank you so much for your generosity.
Thank you, Taylor. The title for today's meeting was Demystifying Mental Illness, and I think it's very important to recognize that we need to demystify mental illness because it's really been misunderstood throughout history. So what I'm going to cover quickly is what we thought mental illnesses were, what we now know mental illnesses to be, the reality of resilience and recovery, and the question then of to work or not to work. And I'll explain that when I get that far. But first, what we used to think mental illnesses were, next slide, was this. That this was back in the 1950s, when after 100 years of putting people away in hospitals, we had come to think that serious mental illness meant irrevocable disability. And if we didn't think that it meant that kind of irrevocable disability, we thought, next slide, that it was what we saw in Cuckoo's Nest or what we see on the streets in terms of people who are homeless. So we have had very negative images of mental illness, and the stigma and discrimination that accompanies those very negative understandings of mental illness has caused people not to seek care in a timely way. And the sooner people get help, the better off their outcomes will be. So it's very important that we, next slide, understand that this is what serious mental illnesses actually does look like these days. And I would draw your attention to 3 people in particular: Prince Harry up on the top left and Oprah Winfrey in the top right have just recently put out a Apple television series on mental health and mental illness, in which they tell their own stories and invite many other people to tell their stories of recovery and resilience. And I highly recommend this TV series for education purposes. The other person I want to point out is Michael Phelps on the far right. I was in New York before the pandemic started and came out of a subway stop and was greeted with a huge billboard showing Michael Phelps's face, very similar to this. And under it, it said, "Psychotherapy saved my life. It could save yours." So we are now in the process of trying to demystify mental illness for all of America and to show that it's possible to recover, it's possible to have resilience, and it's possible to have a life, a full and meaningful life of one's choice, despite having had a serious mental illness. Next slide. We know this because starting back in the 1970s, we started doing international longitudinal studies of people diagnosed with schizophrenia, which is the most severe of the mental illnesses family. And much to everyone's surprise, we found, and this even during the days of long-term hospitalization, that between 46 and 68% of people diagnosed with that most serious illness still recovered over time. You'll see in the middle that it sometimes took 32 years for them to fully recover. But the fact is that over half of the people who were seen in this research got better over time. Next slide. If we look at the way that things are currently practiced these days, we find that the recovery rates are actually more like 75%. So three out of 4 people diagnosed with a serious mental illness will recover. So recovery is more the norm than the exception. Next slide. What do we know about what promotes resilience and recovery? Well, first, we know what gets in the way. We know what makes it harder. Stigma and discrimination first and foremost, because it keeps people away from getting timely care. Social isolation and rejection makes things worse and harder. Withdrawal, low self-esteem, and a lack of access to care are all things that contribute to keeping people sick. On the other hand, what helps is having a sense of belonging and acceptance, having safe and stable housing, engaging in social activities of one's choice, employment, which I bolded for the reason I will tell you in a minute, and effective treatment and rehabilitation. These are the things we've learned now that lead up to that 75% recovery rate. I highlight employment because during the times when we were still thinking of serious mental illnesses as chronic, irrevocably deteriorating diseases, we thought that work was stressful and would make people sicker. But as one work advocate put it, if you think that work is stressful, have you tried prolonged unemployment, poverty, and social isolation? So we believe very much that being gainfully and meaningfully employed is an important step along the way to recovery, rather than an impediment of which people need to be kept away. So I will finish my comments here and stay around for questions later.
Thank you so much, Larry. Yes, recovery is more the norm. I love that. Thank you for that overview and really powerful imagery. And we are on time. Next, let me introduce Jennifer Valandry, Director of Business Development and Outreach, and William Mounts, Residential Team Coordinator at Westbridge, who joins us today from Manchester, New Hampshire, and will tell you all about Westbridge. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. So we serve men and their families who are experiencing serious mental illness and substance use. And it's really meaningful for me to be here with you today for a couple of reasons, one of which is that the Social Security Administration was my first employer after college. And the other being that I also grew up with a family member who had serious mental illness. And at that time, no one ever knew what to say to me. And the older pictures that Larry was showing might explain why. So today we're going to show you what is possible. And part of that is the story of Westbridge. We're a nonprofit. We were founded in Manchester 20 years ago by a family who has a son with a serious mental illness who was using drugs at the time. He was actually homeless at the time our program was founded, and he ultimately became one of our first participants and continues to do well. He had been through many treatment programs and was not able to stay in recovery prior to Westbridge. And when his family was forming the program, they turned to experts to develop a program that uses practices identified as evidence-based by SAMHSA. And those practices, when they're provided the way that they were designed, they work. So we treat men with thought and mood disorders with history of drug and alcohol use. They might come to us seeing, hearing, or perceiving things that others don't, feeling extremely depressed or with fluctuating moods with extreme highs and lows. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our residential treatment program. We're accredited, we're state licensed, and we use an integrated dual disorders treatment model, which means that we treat both disorders constantly by the same treatment team. That's also an evidence-based practice. You can go to the next slide, Ingrid, thanks. And our whole environment in the residential program is designed to be therapeutic, and it's staffed 24 hours, 7 days. For every 2 participants in the program, we have 1 staff member. So we have lots of flexibility to provide individualized treatment. We offer individual, group, and family work, helping to stabilize folks and to teach symptom management. And so we incorporate evidence-based practices such as mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy. We help people identify their goals, and many men, when they're in the residential level of care, which lasts 3 to 6 months on average, start volunteering in the community. And it's our goal to make our treatment more accessible to more people, and we're excited to have recently been granted a Optum agreement to serve veterans in CCN Region 1. Next slide, please. And you can actually go through these a little bit quickly. So we have 2 levels of care. In addition to the residential program, we have an assertive community treatment model. That's also an evidence-based practice. Men live independently in their own apartments in the community with our support. We're still seeing pictures of the residential program here. In both programs, we offer psychiatry, medication management, and nursing support. And in ACT, we have a strong care management emphasis, coordinating services. We also provide mentors who help men with independent living skills, side-by-side household management, ensure they're getting to self-help groups, such as Alcoholics Anonymous. And then speaking of work, we also have a vocational team, and they provide supported employment and volunteerism and education. So sometimes they're providing side-by-side support, sometimes it's behind the scenes. And they help people to get competitive employment. One person came to us believing that he was under surveillance, and once he got stabilized, he got a job selling sunglasses in the mall, and then a technology sales internship, a full-time technology sales job, and now he wins awards in his technology sales job. We also have an alumni program to show people that recovery can be fun. They like to go skiing, to the beach, to the Museum of Fine Arts. And then also, I should mention our treatment outcomes, which is that if people are with us a year or more, between residential and assertive community treatment, at a 2.5-year follow-up, they're likely to be in recovery across multiple domains. That includes from their symptoms of mental illness, substance use. They'll have stable housing, employment, and less family conflict, among other things. So the main point is that people with serious mental illness can and do live full lives in recovery. It's all about being part of a community and being connected to others. And thank you for listening and wanting to make a difference. Next up, we have Will Mounts, who is our residential coordinator.
Thanks, Jen, and well, thanks everyone for the opportunity to come speak here today. I was asked to share a little bit about my own experience to start with, and then how that experience informs my role at Westbridge. So to start with going into my mental health a little bit, I should say that if you look back on my childhood, there was really nothing to point out or to, nothing to indicate that I would, experience any, mental health challenges. My family remained intact. My dad had a great job, lots of affection in the family. Moved around a little bit, but I enjoyed that. I excelled academically. There was some pressure to, do well academically, but I enjoyed it. So it wasn't really until high school, late high school, that I began to feel out of place and my anxiety began to really well up. And that continued on, and I didn't really think much of it. I kind of assumed it was normal. People talk about, social anxiety and butterflies. I assumed that's basically what I was experiencing. When I went away to college, those feelings continued to develop and depression started to be rolled into the mix. And from the time I was about 18 to the time I was around 25, things really did metastasize, and it got to the point where my depression became so overpowering that I became isolative. I stopped tending to my most basic needs. I'd go months and months and months without talking to my family. They were supportive, but I could easily go 6 months without talking to them. I felt ashamed. I felt guilty. I was confused, scared, everything. I felt I was letting everyone down, not least of all myself. And by the time I was in around 23 was the first time I attempted suicide. And I didn't quite know what to do. It was more of a gesture. I felt defeated. The only thing I could figure was I needed a way out. And that was the only thing I knew. I didn't entirely know what was happening to me, why I was the way I was. I was aware of depression and anxiety as concepts, but I didn't know what that really meant. Eventually, I shared with my family what had been going on generally. This was following a suicide attempt in which I did harm myself. I talked with my family and they immediately said, well, you need to get into treatment. And again, I was aware of, psychotherapy as a concept. I didn't really know, what it meant. I didn't understand the resources that were available to me. I didn't know what my options were. And during this time, I should also add, although it's not the focus of this, that I had been using alcohol as my only coping strategy too, which in retrospect, not very helpful, but it was the only thing that provided me relief at the time. So with my family's support, I did enter treatment. And for me, the thing that really helped out almost more so than anything else was psychoeducation, family involvement, and access to peer supports. Because for me, my world, while I was experiencing major depression, my worldview had just become so myopic. Like I had blinders on. I had access to all these family supports and great resources, but I couldn't see them. I could only see what was right in front of me, and my perspective on what was right in front of me was really bleak. So being able to have my perspective broadened through education, through other people's experiences and their stories, allowed some of the stigma to come down and allowed me to broaden my perspective and realize, okay, this is not my fate. There is recovery. Recovery is possible. I just have to go down this avenue as opposed to hurtling down the path that I had been going down for about 5 years. And since that point, since the age of 25, things it hasn't been an entirely smooth road, especially in the first 18 months. There was some setbacks, but generally, I remained pointed in the right direction, remained engaged with treatment, maintained a very active relationship with my family, which for me has just been enormously key. And I've been able to really find, satisfaction and hope in helping other people along the same journey, because I recognize that, for me, the thing that made me feel most adrift was just that I felt alone. So being able to share my experience with others, I hope that they found it to be similarly helpful to the way that the people who shared their experience was helpful to me. So that's my spiel.
Thank you, Will. Very powerful, very brave. We're so proud of you. And you've just made quite a lot of more allies to the recovery work and the clients that you serve. Thank you so much for sharing, Westbridge.
Absolutely.
Next is, I'm sorry, Will?
Oh, no, I said absolutely. Thank you.
Next, it's my pleasure to introduce our colleagues at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Grishel DeHoe Care System, Intensive Integrated Recovery and Treatment Programs, and Melissa Bingham, Certified Peer Support Specialist, specializing on the Brockton PRRC program. And we look forward to learning more about that. So take it away. Just a quick sound check.
Sorry, I was muted. I said a lot of genius things. It's unfortunate that you missed them. Thanks for having us today. We're excited to be here and share a overview of our recovery-based programs for the Boston VA healthcare system. And before I get going with the slide, I wanted to highlight that all of our specialty programs are recovery-oriented and include evidence-based services. And we ensure our core values of hope and respect and veteran-driven care are central to all of the programs, some of which we will be presenting here today. We also make sure to weave in aspects of trauma-informed care throughout all the programs. And I just wanted to share one example of a recent change that we made that was veteran-driven and also speaks to our values. So we used to be referred to the SMI section, and veterans would have appointments in the SMI clinics. The veterans came to me and said they found this stigmatizing and they'd like to see it change. So I said, absolutely. I worked together with my amazing teams, and we had task force and focus groups and anonymous surveys. And we're proud to now be referred to as the ICERT section, which is Intensive Community Integration, Recovery, and Treatment. And one of our strategic goals for this year is to increase our diversity and inclusion. So just last week, all of our staff were trained in race-based trauma, and we will be implementing that into all of our programs. And we're excited to do that. So that's just a kind of quick overview. We're not going to present all our programs today because we are lucky and have a wealth of them. I wanted to start with the Community Residential Care Program, known as the CRC. I imagine all the federal agencies love acronyms as much as the VA. We speak our own language. So CRC homes, they are privately owned residents in the community. And the homes are usually owned by non-professionals, not mental health professionals or nurses. The VA goes in and approves the home and coordinates referrals and placements, but we don't have any staff. We don't own the homes, run the homes, and we don't have staff there day to day. The CRC program has housing options from single rooms. So single homes. So one veteran may join a family. We have group homes, and we have level 4 group rest homes. The veteran pays rent directly to the home provider. We're not involved in that aspect. But what the CRC VA team does do is they conduct the initial assessment and survey for the home when they apply to be in the program. And we go out annually and do a comprehensive evaluation and assessment. We screen and refer and match veterans for placement. This is one of my favorite aspects. It's not, oh, there's an open bed in this program. It's okay, we want to match you to the best home that we have. What are your needs? What level of support? What community do you want to live in? What do you envision this looking like for you? And then we match as best as we can. We provide psychiatric and primary care services, and at a minimum, the case managers, the VA case managers, go into the homes at least monthly to see the veterans, work with the staff. Usually it's much more than monthly, especially now we are offering virtual care in all of our ICERT programs. Next slide. So to be eligible for this program and any program, you have to be enrolled in the VA healthcare system. You need to be able to be medically and psychiatrically stable, not at risk to self or others, not in need of hospital or nursing level care, not actively, and the word actively is very important, engaging in substance abuse, and financial resources of a minimum of $1,000 for the rent and services, and we'll tell you more about that. And at this time, we're not able to work with level 3 sex offenders. And if someone is on a injectable med, for example, with diabetes, they have to be able to administer that themselves. Next slide. So what do the CRC homes provide, and what do they do, and do they work? So we currently have 23 homes. 5 are in the Boston area, and the rest are spread out from the South Shore, Brockton, Wareham, Lowell. We have a very large group of homes and diverse throughout New England, well, throughout Massachusetts. And the CRC homes are required to at least provide, many times they provide more, but a room. A room could be shared or it could be private. Veterans decorate them the way that they want to. A minimum of 3 meals a day and 2 snacks. Support with ADLs, attention to daily living. So if someone needs a reminder, hey, today you might want to take a shower, brush your teeth, they'll provide that. 24-hour, 24/7 support, supervision of medications, coordination of transportation, tracking appointments, and laundry services. As you can see, the rent is high, but lots of services come with this. This is all inclusive. And we find that if the veterans stay in the program for a year, we have a 74% reduction of inpatient and residential stays. And that is clearly a big number, 74%. Next slide. This is just a quick look at the Vinyl home, which is in Whitman, Mass, and it's $1,200 to $2,000 a month. This home is a little outdated, but I will say that it's probably one of the homes the veterans want to go to most, because this is a generational home. The person who runs it now, their family ran it, and he grew up with these veterans. These veterans are his family. They are so dedicated, swimming pools, cookouts. I mean, they're a group of brothers and sisters living there together. And this is beautiful oceanfront. Want to show you another home, beautiful oceanfront home in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And the rent there usually is about $2,100. So our next program I was going to share, again, our acronyms, MICM, which is our Mental Health Intensive Case Management Program. And many of you might know of the ACT model in the community for case management offered to the community. So this is our form of that. And so the goal is to optimize the health status and the quality of life and community membership for veterans who have a mental illness and they're high users of inpatient services. We really want to work with our veterans to live in the community of their choice with the least restrictive services. And this program is truly amazing. We've had veterans that have lived in hospitals for 10 years that are now living on their own with MICM support. We do this by individual and recovery-based case management. It's a multidisciplinary team and they deliver comprehensive services. And MICM meets with the veterans 2 to 3 times a week. At a minimum, it would be once a week. And the team goes right into the community, into the veterans' home, meets them at work. It's a really great model. And so it's endless. What I found with this staff is they will do anything to meet a veteran where they're at to accomplish their recovery goals. So this is just such a small sample, but crisis intervention, medication management, they'll help with budget, social skills, they advocate for the clients, they've met with landlords to work through issues, transportation to appointments, they work with family, caregivers, they offer education and support and advocacy, they monitor mental health, They assist with shopping, laundry, chores. A veteran's front door lock was broken. A nurse went out to do meds and was like, oh, you can't have a broken front door, and went and changed the veteran's lock. Psychosocial education and emotional support. And we will refer to community and VA providers as needed. So in order to be a candidate for the MICM program, all 4 of these criteria, it's very strict, have to be met. And again, you have to be a member of the VA healthcare system enrolled. You have to have a diagnosis of a severe and persistent mental illness. You are not able to be served in an outpatient clinic. So you've tried outpatient programming and it's just not what you need at that time. You need more comprehensive support. And then high hospitalization use, because we want to work with veterans so they don't have to be in the hospital, because we see it every single day that recovery is possible. So veterans would have a 30-day stay in a hospital over a year, or 3 stays in an inpatient psychiatric facility, and then clinically appropriate for outpatient services. So again, if they're better served in a residential or inpatient service, we understand, but we'll be there when they're ready to move on to the community of their choice. And this is this is for Melissa, and I'm so excited to have Melissa here. I just have to say, she's such a wonderful peer. We work together all the time. We've run some programs together, and she's just a joy to work with. And the work that she does with our veterans at times has truly made me speechless. It's really great. I don't see you, Melissa, but it's probably my settings.
Possibly. Hopefully everyone can see me. My video is on.
Yep, you're here.
All right. Thank you, Griselda. So today, I want to talk a little bit, share a little bit about my story, talk about what peer support is, why it's so important. I'm going to share a little bit of information about one of the great programs here at the VA that I work in, the PRRC. I'm actually a medically retired Army sergeant, combat veteran, was stationed in Ramadi, Iraq in 06, 07 with an infantry battalion. Battalion I was in the time that I was over there, it was a really rough time, call Ramadi the pits of the earth over there. Very difficult, lots of losses that we experienced. And during that time, my mental health took a big dive, kind of similar to the story shared a little bit ago by Will. Ended up getting into a really, really deep, dark place while I was there with everything that was going on. Started really staying to myself for a while and isolating, realizing that things were getting off. I never really had the feelings that I was experiencing while I was there. Conflict of my morals, my religious beliefs, things that were happening, all of the death around me, ended up starting to really go downhill. Sought out the help from a chain of command, really didn't get anywhere. Sadly, not great leadership in my battalion. Ultimately, I started self-harming over there, was cutting myself to deal with the deep emotions that I was experiencing. Also started volunteering to go out on more missions, with the guys in hopes of, that I would just join all of the young ones, that had already gone. So leadership was noticing these things, but not doing anything. But my family back home knew that something wasn't right. So kind of like Will, my family was a big advocate for me. My mother got involved and contacted our congressman, and they kind of made a move on it with the congressional. Ended up getting medevaced out of theater, taken over to Landstuhl, Germany, and hospitalized there. Also on, 1-1 with And so the VA diagnosed me with PTSD. But I didn't really still understand what was going on. So kind of hopping around, not really fully engaged in therapy. Started really isolating from my family once I got back home. Things were kind of chaotic. Ended up moving from North Carolina up to Massachusetts to be with my now wife, and been up here for 13 years now, and she's been a huge support system for me. But the thing that I would share about recovery is that people have to reach that point where they're ready for their life to change, that they're at the point of where things are, at least for me, it was so difficult, and it was like, I can't keep living like this, because for 6 years I stayed to myself. Rarely left the house, couldn't go on Walmart, couldn't shop without, needing to leave. I needed exit plans for everything. I felt the enemy was outside of my house. They're watching me. All these things are going on. So what did I do? Eventually I got linked up with a good therapist at the vet center and started some trauma work, and started realizing that, okay, life can be different, but I'm going to have to do some work. And I did the work, and, as a peer support, what is a peer support? We're a person with lived experience. We've been there, maybe we've went through some of these things, whether it's the mental health or the substance side. I drank myself into the ground to deal with my stuff, and drinking only made things worse. I wanted to fight. I got aggressive when I was drinking, which was getting me nowhere. And so, having that experience, being able to share the stories with the veterans that I work with, number one, I feel like, it helps to build that connection where they might be, more willing to, share with me versus with a clinician, because it's like, oh, okay, she gets it, she's been there. That happens so often when I'm sharing my story, and they're like, yeah, me too. So we come from that place, and what do? We promote empowerment, hey, you guys can do this, I did it. It's not easy, but you've been thinking for years you can't live on your own. You want to live on your own, like, let's make it happen. You want to go back to school? Hey, I did that. It took me 6 years to get my bachelor's, but that's okay. Keep at it. Here now, I'm a testament to them. I'm going for a master's degree. I just keep, setting the bar higher and letting these guys know, anything you want to do is possible. Recovery is real, but you got to put the work in. I still tell them, hey, I'm still doing therapy regularly. Hey, you got to do these things, and it's okay. At first I was like, God, am I going to be like this for the rest of my life? I want the old Melissa back. Where is she? It's also about acceptance of your life experiences and what you've been through. And that's okay. Those memories aren't going to go away, but we can manage these symptoms. You can get out there and do the things that you want to do. We bring that unique perspective to the team. I work on a team with, we got 2 social workers. There's 2 of us peer supports. There's some psychologists. But our perspective is a little bit different. We serve as role models. We teach goal setting, problem solving, symptom management, variety of recovery tools. I do individual work with veterans. And I also I facilitate groups on my own, or I co-facilitate a lot of the groups in our program as a peer support. So we'll go to the next slide, and I'll actually talk about the peer support here in the PRRC, what we do. So this is a long acronym, like Griselda mentioned. They're everywhere in our programs. PRRC stands for Psychosocial Rehabilitation Recovery Center. So we like to think of ourselves as we're a transitional learning center. We promote independent community involvement. Community integration is our big thing, because in recovery, one of the biggest things for me, we talked about that social isolation piece and not really, getting out or doing things. Wounded Warrior Project was huge for me. That's actually, besides therapy, the other thing that really got me out of my shell, because I was with other veterans with similar things going on out there doing fun stuff, So I tell these guys, hey, get involved in something. Start, getting some of those activities going, go on fishing trips, bowling, movies, whatever it may be. We help the veterans with their interest. You know, some of these guys tell me, hey, you know, I've been in my house, like, you know, really don't leave. I don't leave at all, but I'm interested in volunteering. All right, well, you know, we help the vets, you know, that want to volunteer. Maybe they volunteer here at the VA first where they're more comfortable because they're with their family. We get them doing that for a while, then they can get out there and volunteer in the community. I help people with education. You want to go back to college? Nobody better than me. Hey, I know all about the GI Bill and folk rehab. Let's get you in. Let's get it going. Exploring hobbies. Maybe some people have been, you know, to themselves so long, not really sure what they want to do. We can do that. We have lots of different classes. It's very independent, veteran driven. They can choose to attend 1 day a week or 5 days a week. Individual, working with their program contact or with the groups. We do a lot of evidence-based practices, offer family involvement. You know, I could talk about our program all day long and some of the great things that we do. You know, I've helped guys that, you know, sadly, a lot of times family relationships are destroyed with mental health because family, you know, looks at the person, oh, well, I don't know what to do with that. You know, why don't you just go do this? So
Sure.
them reconnect with family, you know, that they haven't seen in 10 and 15 years. You know, I taught him how to use Facebook, found his nephew, got him reconnected. That family connection is what it's about. I
Thank
know
you, Melissa.
so I will wrap it up there, but yeah, lots of stuff in our program. Thank y'all so much.
We really want to hear more about it, Melissa. Thank you so much for that. These panelists for that rich and enlightening look into the work that you do each day to heal and to help, ensuring clients that the impossible is possible. Melissa says that the words "I'm possible" are in the word impossible, which is just wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Now I'd like to turn it over Maria Restrepo-Toro, co-director of the New England Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, for an overview of the Federal Collaborative Resource Suite. Her team worked tremendously hard to pull this together for us. Thank you so much, Maria.
Mute myself. Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And thank you so much, Taylor, and everybody for an amazing conversation. It is our pleasure, as Taylor mentioned at the beginning. This is our second meeting, and we had partnered with the Region 1 office, SAMHSA office, to develop something that the federal family asked us to do. So based on your feedback, we came up with one of your comments was, we need to know how in the federal family we can actually access resources, because there's a lot of resources out there. There is a lot of powerful stories like we heard today that are really concentrating on recovery. So I am going to just ask Ingrid to just put this, and I have to tell you, I have all the credit is going for Ingrid Paget, the amazing Ingrid who developed these amazing resources for you. So I just have the honor to walk you through today, but really I want to really be very clearly, like, she has done an amazing job with this. So we had put today for this region is a resource walk that's going to explore all these amazing recovery resources. So what you see on the screen is what we call a virtual room. And the first step, when you come into this resource, as you see the red bottom in the front with the little home. That's where you start. You are going to be actually, when this is launched for the federal family, you're going to be hearing Taylor's voices. But when you first open this page in this bottom, what you're going to see is the history of this collaborative, where we came up and how we developed this collaborative. So that's when you walk into this room, that's the first thing you're going to do. And then when you look at this welcome, what we are seeing, since we are in this resource walk for the federal families, we are going to see the 6 states. So when you go and click under each state, and let's just click on one for now, you will see Connecticut, for instance. Every state in our region has an amazing office and Department of Mental Health that are going to be offering you amazing resources already. So we start that at the center in this walking room. So when you walk to your right, you're going to see the federal family of resources that have been developed for you to look. The first one we're going to take a look is the Serious Mental Advisor, which is a federally funded center that has everything that you need to know, not only about the treatment, but also about the recovery resources for the people that we're working together on this. The second one that's also a federal, you're going to find a treatment locator. And I need to tell you that this is a work in progress. This is not done. It's never going to be done because we need everybody on this, on the federal family, to work with us. And we're going to continue to update this. So you're going to have a treatment locator that's going to bring people specifically to each of the states. You, in addition, are going to see the next one, Ingrid, is going to be the Office of Personnel Management. All the tips that are going to be that we were just hearing this morning. So you are going to click into that and you are going to be finding an amazing amount of resources of wellness for the federal family. Okay, so that's going to be, and we are going to continue adding. I think the last federal resources, Ingrid, please, if you can click on that so we can take a look, is our, of course, New England Technology Transfer Center. Then to your left, what we did, and I think this is such an amazing product, is that we build a resource based on recovery, because we are all about recovery oriented, believing in people's efforts, as you heard today, the stories and the programs that support recovery. So we build resources that are based on these 4 dimensions of recovery developed by SAMHSA. So let's click on the first one, for instance, health. So when you click into health and we look into those resources, what you're going to be is lots of resources within our New England region that are going to be really concentrating, such as NAMI, the new funded National Support Family Center. Keep going, scrolling, all the Native American Indigenous community in our region. So we are conscious and want to make sure that any kind of resources we put out there is going to be, and then of course we have suicide, that's what one of your requests, and there's a lot of programs that are working around suicide.
Absolutely.
So that's just an example. And Ingrid, Taylor, I get it that we have to move on. So just to finish, you will have the rest of the dimensions when you walk through on the left-hand side from health, home, and
It's phenomenal. It is just phenomenal. The site leaves me absolutely speechless. Thank you. We are so lucky, Maria, for you and the team putting this together for us. Ingrid has just been incredible. Thank you so much. We're very excited to explore. I'm not sure if any questions came through for our panelists, but I can assure you that we will make note of them and definitely follow up. Does that sound right? Let me ask Martha and Tim if we have any questions for our panelists today.
I don't believe we've received any in the chat, but I hope that if people have questions, they'll write them in the chat or unmute themselves to ask.
I'm sure it was eye-opening for many of our guests. Can someone post the link to the virtual resource room to the chat, please? Yep, that's an easy one. Sure thing. All of our resources will be available post-event. All right. Tim or Martha, I can't see anyone raising their hand. So with that, as you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm sorry. Okay. So with that, I would love to turn it over to our acting regional director and chair of the Greater Boston Federal Executive Board, Paul Jacobson, to close out today's forum. We thank you, Paul, for your leadership and for being a champion to this work and pulling our team together to be able to provide these resources today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Taylor, and thank you to Kim Ainsworth and our friends at SAMHSA, VA, Westbridge, and everybody else who's helped make today possible. Last year, when SAMHSA approached us with this effort, We knew that it was critical, especially with the pandemic and its unknown solutions, that we work together to educate and support each other. Our last meeting in October found that we could all benefit greatly from learning more about serious mental illness, the effects on communities, families, and workplaces. We knew that housing, mental health, racism, and stigma contribute to the challenges that people face. Trauma also plays a significant factor with serious mental illness and disturbances. After hearing from today's panel, I feel better knowing that we have each other and these incredible resources that can help to provide some guidance on recovery services. We now know where to go, how to be of service to each other, and with a little more empathy. I really appreciated hearing from Kim about how the pandemic has changed our approach in many ways. We hope that this forum has helped highlight mental health an integral part of all of our missions. And I encourage you to use the tools, as I will, and remember the voices of recovery that we heard today. We've lost many people to overdoses within the last 18 months, almost 92,000 lives nationally. The more we can do to share information, the more we can aid each other in keeping our colleagues and their families safe and well. Today has also opened my eyes in recognizing that we need more people like Will and Melissa in peer support roles to help people on the road to recovery from mental illness and trauma. Thank you for supporting Region 1's Federal Collaborative. We hope to hear that the website has been useful. And if you have anything to add from your agency, please email Tim Jean at SAMHSA. We've engaged quite a few of you and know that meeting twice a year is ideal. So we hope to see you in December when we'll focus on the impacts of the criminal justice system and how it intersects with people with serious mental illness. Until then, remember that recovery is possible and vaccination save lives. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, everyone. That completes our program for today. Post materials will be following up in your email box soon. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.